Be aware of how you think. There's a thing called subconscious. I don't know what you know about this, but we live 93% in his subconscious thoughts and his subconscious behaviour. It's majority of the time how we function. It's things which become automatic, what we do in his daily behaviour, which our subconscious automatically takes over for his consciousness. So when we do something in a repeated pattern, and that repeated pattern continues, then it goes from a conscious decision, a conscious behaviour, into a subconscious behaviour. Because the subconscious can work far better than as conscious mind. So we live 93% in his subconscious thoughts, his subconscious behaviours. The subconscious holds majority of his brain data, shall we call it. So, as an example, when we're conscious and we're doing conscious things, then that only amounts to around 7% of his daily routines. And it takes, like in computer talk, around 40 gigabits in consciousness. A subconsciousness is what we do 93% of the time. And in subconsciousness, our data is 40,000 gigadata. So you can see the big difference on how we hold our behaviours, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and the way we act through a subconsciousness. So be aware of how you think, because the subconsciousness is experiences of the past. It's nothing new. It's nothing in the future. It's just what we've experienced. It's what's been passed down in terms of belief, in terms of who we are, what we are, by peers around us, growing up through, being a child to being an adult. And we live by those previous programs. We live in those previous programs. So when we tell ourselves we've come to do something and we tell ourselves we can't do it, well, that's because as subconscious programming, as learnt behaviour tells us we can't. So we say to ourselves we can't, so we don't try. It's kind of a way in which keeps us in his comfort zone, it's designed in terms of how we structured to keep us from safety, flight mode. It's designed to just keep us in his comfort zone and to keep us in his previous patterns of what we've already known. So when we trying to tackle our own mindset and change our behaviour, well, we can only do that consciously. But if we do it consciously and we only do it once or twice or half a dozen times, 100 times, doesn't necessarily means it replays into your consciousness, into your subconsciousness. So only through repeating and continue to repeat those same programs, same thoughts you want to live by, do we actually start influencing and changing our subconsciousness. It's like auto-suggestion. It's a good way to look at it. So through auto-suggestion, by our thoughts, we can change our subconscious thoughts by being consciously aware of them. How do we do that? Well, first step is to write down our subconscious thoughts. When we're told we can't do it, when we're telling ourselves we can't do it, or it's too hard, or it's something difficult, or we don't want to go there, that's the subconsciousness. So first step, write it down. Then consciously look at what you've written to see if you actually agree with what you've just written. Because if you don't, a lot of times, for an example, a lot of times we have these discussions in our minds, different ways and why we should do it and why we shouldn't, and we have these pros and cons. All happens very quickly, but we always kind of side on the subconscious thought where we can't do it and not to do it. So by writing it down, we're actually giving ourselves something consciously to look at and decide if we want to change it. Saying it out loud and then deciding from there. Writing down what we actually think, what our actually conscious thoughts are. And by being consciously, we actually start that process, auto-suggestion, of suggesting to our subconsciousness that this is what we've experienced, this is what we've done, this is how we want to think and how we want to act. It's another tip, you could record yourself. Record yourself what you're thinking, what you're saying, and play that back. And then delete that and consciously record yourself on how you want to think, how you want to act, and repeat that. So that's auto-suggestion to your subconsciousness through repeated sayings that this is how we're going to think. One of the most important ones you can use is visualisation. So subconsciousness doesn't know reality to not reality. It only knows as previous past. It only knows what we tell it, what we experience. So if we actually visualise and visualise ourselves as an actor in the moments, in the thoughts we want to change, in the outcome we want to have, and we act out in this visualisation as speech, what we hear, what we smell, what we see, who's around us, its environment, and repeat that. That again is auto-suggestion. It's actually telling your subconsciousness, well, we've experienced this, this is how we act, and moving forward, this is how we want to act. So subconsciousness is really the inner thoughts. And if we can control and enhance the subconscious thoughts, we can actually change our lives, because that changes our emotions and changes then our behaviours. And we start living the way we want to live as a person in our lives. And it beats me up that for such a long time in my own life, I lived in my subconsciousness. I was never willing to get uncomfortable and change it through experience, through self-talk. And it held me back, and it has held me back so much. And it's only by me confronting it, gaining some learning and some knowledge and understanding, incorporating what I learn, and then start, as I've just explained, writing it down, recording it, saying it out loud, the outcome I want, consciously my thoughts, being aware and on top of how I want to live, how I want to be, recording myself, taking myself all the time out of my comfort zone, but visualising every experience and repeating the same visualisation. If we focus on what we do want consciously and repeat that, we'll change that into a belief system. And we believe that we are that person. We believe that that's how we want to act. And if we have belief, we can achieve anything. So we've got to be mindful, and we've got to be consciously aware of how we think, what that inner voice is telling us. And we need to change it through learning, through the steps I've outlined already, and be able to change his lives and not live in the same day in, day out. Not willing to get uncomfortable because we in fear of what judgment or embarrassment actually does in terms of doing it. So, there's a thing called neuro-linguistics programming, which is the exact same thing as auto-suggestion. It's influencing our thought process consciously into a subconscious. But I need to stress to you that it takes time and it takes effort and hard work to actually put in the steps to actually start changing the subconsciousness, because we don't need to live by that. We don't need to live in them previous programs, those previous experiences we've had. We want to live in the here and now with what we want to achieve in his life. So the linguistic programming, auto-suggestion, subconscious thoughts, you know, whatever you want to label it, it's up to us to take control, and it's up to us to change that. And if we can do that, and we can take the steps, and through repetition over time, be able to gain confidence from the fact that it works, because it works, it so works, and it so does change your life, that if we can get a bit of momentum, get a bit of growth from doing it, a bit of confidence from doing it, you'll actually start doing it more often. You'll actually start really taking control of how you think, and being able to change that, and living within yourself a lot more of a happier life. And that will be shown to everybody around you, to the outside environment. So the points I've made are really important, and it's something I'm really passionate about, as you can see. We're human, you know. We've got to be able to love ourselves, to be yourselves. And if we can be yourselves, we can believe in ourselves. And if we believe in ourselves, we can achieve anything. I truly believe that. It just takes hard work, takes commitment, and it takes a little bit of education, and it takes a little bit of willpower. But we've got this. You've got this. So let's be mindful. Let's think about what our thoughts are telling us, and let's start making the steps to change them. This is my life. This is my journey. This is my startup. This is me.